Jamie Collins joined this team last year in the middle of the year. He was kind of like doing everything on the fly. Where is he at in what you're trying to do, and what do you think of him as a player?
He's at a great level. First of all, about Jamie, even last year, I mean, I think maybe the casual fan can't have enough respect for what he did last year. Coming in immediately, having a complex system similar to the complex system that we have now, and literally, as I was told, they just gave him the playbook, and that's how Jamie learns best. And he just sat there throughout that first week and just read the playbook, memorized it all, and just went out and played and took every single snap. And you've seen him do the same thing this year. And he's one of the guys, and I've gotten a chance to be around some guys like him in my career. And the phraseology that I use is he can just think football. For whatever it is, he can just think football. There may be guys with higher test scores every once in a while and stuff like that, that get stuff confused, and you'll hear him over there like, hey, it's just football. It's just football, and he'll know what not he's supposed to do, but what they're supposed to do, what a DB is supposed to do, what a D lineman's supposed to do. He gets the concept of what he's doing, and that allows him to use some of the unique athleticism that he can do, and we can kind of move him around and technically play him at different positions, so to say, where he's doing more different things than maybe some other people are, because he can handle that. If he wasn't able to handle that mentally, then maybe he couldn't be able to do that.
He went from the penthouse to the outhouse last year. Super Bowl champion, 1-15 team. Did he need recruiting to re-sign, and were you involved in that at all?
I was not involved in that at all, and I really don't think it was. I mean, my first technical day on the job was down at the Senior Bowl, and that was the first day that he got signed, and he came, and he's from down there, not far away, and he drove right over there and came to meet, talked with Hugh, but meet Craig, meet me, talk, and I thought that was, told a lot, you told us a lot about him, but no real recruiting the entire way. I think he knows what good football looks like. I think he knows what good programs look like. I think he knows what that looks like, and so I think he sees what we're doing right now in the way the organization as a whole, just even outside of the football staff and football ops staff, is going, and he recognizes some of those elements, from New England. So I think he's excited about it.
Blake, are there any challenges to being the son of the coordinator who's so domineering and so out there? I mean, and related to players and earning their respect.
I'm shocked he's not standing back here right now critiquing my body language and everything I'm saying and telling me to take my hat off and all that stuff. But no, maybe earlier in my career, you may be a little bit more aware of it. You realize that your resume, what you realize why you're there. You realize it has a level of nepotism that's involved with it. It's who you know in order to get a chance to show what you know business. And your resume at 21 years old, coaching the league, like I was, doesn't necessarily warrant that outside of your name. So I think maybe you're slightly, a little bit more aware of that, and you want to really sell the players. I think you get to this point in time, where it really, it doesn't matter. The players know that at the end of the day, it's about knowing what he wants, and nobody probably knows what he wants them to do more than me. And so it's almost maybe a reverse effect now, where even at other position groups, it's like, well, how is Greg going to respond in this situation? How's Greg going to do this? How's Greg going to do this? And I'm able to kind of give him a little insight on that. So it's probably a reverse effect.
Yesterday, you didn't seem to have any problem really calling out two veteran members of the defense for not paying attention.
Yeah.
Is that hard for you to do, or easy at this point?
I don't. It's not something I ever, want to go out of my, way to do. Obviously, the players know it, but they expect us to hold them accountable. Prefer always assistant coaches, especially when we have a coordinator that can lay it down like that, to be able to just be in teach mode all the time. But sometimes when you have to affect focus and ears because the teaching's going on deaf ears, sometimes you have to be able to feel comfortable with doing that. I think what people don't get a chance to see sometimes is if you do that without having spent hours and hours and hours recruiting that relationship beforehand, then it's personal. When you've recruited that relationship and they realize that we laugh, we joke, we know stuff about each other's families, we love each other, we do all that type of stuff, then they own it. They're like, yeah, you know what, I need that a little bit for that moment, and it's.
Did you get any of that from those two guys yet? Afterwards?
You
were right,
no. I mean, I think that's just the approach that we have. Trust me, none of us are. We get it as coaches too. It just goes right on down the line. We get it. We get it as coaches too. We all need it at times. I think it's. But it's about it's about understanding the approach and understanding, checking the egos at the door, and understanding that we're on a quest for something, special, and hopefully, obviously, that stuff doesn't have to happen as much as you continue to go on, because you just fall into that routine of being ultimately professional all the time.
What was it like growing up under Greg Williams? We see his professional personality. Is that the same he was? Very abrasive as a parent?
Wouldn't need it to be. I mean, he kept it real. I mean, it was. I told you guys in the spring is day one we had vocab lesson about the difference between sympathy and empathy. I have empathy for him, not sympathy for him. They're going to get a taste of what my upbringing was like, and he tells you everything that he wants. Doesn't micromanage, but he tells you everything he wants, exactly what he expects the standard to be, and then he tells you, "I'm going to say what I mean what I say." And so he always says choices, decisions, consequences. That's the same way he raised us. He's like, look, I'm not going to be overbearing on you, but I'm going to tell you, if you do this, whatever it may be, drink and drive, go out to a party, miss your curfew, if you do this, you are not going to like the consequences. And then gives you the free rein to make the decision. And he calls those teachable moments. And sometimes those teachable moments come out in different ways. Yesterday was a teachable moment, on focus. But I'm standing here. My sister, who's a young doctor, is standing where she's at. My brother, who got a chance to play in the league for a cup of coffee after being a captain at middle linebacker, Virginia Tech, and now has got a great job as a corporate recruiter in Nashville. We are all where we are today because of that from both mom and dad. We got it from both. They were both competitive athletes, and so very thankful for that upbringing and that leadership, and whatnot. And I think the players get a chance to see that.
With Tank, we talked about it in the spring, but do you feel like he's the guy that's going to hold on the job?
I mean, yeah, he's doing it right now. He's doing it. I don't say he's doing it right now to mean that, okay, well, it's not going to be tomorrow. I mean, he's doing everything he needs to be. Now, so is Joe Schobert. So is a couple other guys. There are some guys even that you don't see out there always maybe running with a one rotation. Every once in a while you'll see Joe with certain packages running with the one rotation. And whatnot, but there are some guys that are playing, in my opinion, and I think in our staff's opinion, at starter level caliber reps, even beyond the starters, and that is a unique feeling when all of a sudden you feel that a quote-unquote backup is playing at a starter level. Well, now you can find ways in a multiple defense like Greg's to take a guy off for a series, get him rest for one series, so he's ready to go for fourth quarter, and say, okay, hey, plug you in at this position, plug you in at this position, plug you in at this position, plug you in on this sub package, and maybe get him up to a guy like that up to starter or 3/4 of starter level reps by the end of the game. The more guys that can prove they can play at that level consistently, I think Joe Schobert is doing a great job at doing that, but so is Tank as well too. The more guys that we can kind of get in there and be fresh in the fourth quarter and try to get after some people.
I talked to Tank yesterday. Can you tell how important it is to him and how much it would mean to him if he's that guy? I think it's the 6th year in the league and he hasn't started more than 2 games.
Yes, and he's candid about it. We all want to be at the top of our profession. We all want to play. We all want to do that. He like all the rest of these guys have been starters in the man their entire life, and all of a sudden they get to the NFL, and there's great pride in being a career special teams player. But every once in a while, it's maybe taking him a little longer than Christian Kirksey, but you gravitate through the ranks, so to say, and all of a sudden you get your shot. And so yeah, it's very important to him, and he takes it very seriously.
What percentage of time do you see the middle linebacker being on the field over the course of the season?
That's really up to Greg. That's why you obviously want to always have middle linebackers that you feel in our system, because they're such a quarterback, and really making all the checks, doing all the alignments, doing those things. You want to make, feel comfortable that he can play in sub situations. But as you see in all of the packages, all the things that Greg's done through the years is, well, sometimes, there's still 3 linebackers on the field in sub-type situations. It's a 3-3-5, type of defense, or various different versions of, take a safety off the field and put a corner on the field, and so keep still 3 linebackers on the field, but bring an extra corner on the field for the third wide receiver and do some of those things. So there's enough ways to even keep 3 linebackers on the field in in nickel situations, sub situations. So it really just depends on how Greg sees it and how he calls the game. You know?
But of the three linebackers, the middle is going to see the least amount of time.
Usually the most, and so that's what, because again, like I said, because he is the general of the ship. Traditionally, that's just how it's been. If you look in the past, Jonathan Filma, London Fletcher, James Laurinaitis, all those type of guys. I mean, they're not, coming off the field. They weren't playing in those situations, but it's more the ability because they are telling everybody what to do, where to go, all this stuff. I mean, they are literally the equivalent of the quarterback on offense. But it changes. It's not to say that a guy like, obviously, we saw Kirksey do that last year. Jamie is bright as they come. So it's not saying he can't all of a sudden move in and make the mic calls and do those things. It's not that whatsoever. Or Schobert, or some of those guys. We have multiple guys right now who can step in there and make those calls and do that.
Jamie and Kirksey essentially played like every snap when they were out there on the field. Is that something? Are they prepared to do that again, or is that something you want to maybe ease their kind of burden off?
I think they're even more prepared to do that. From the standpoint of they are in better. They'll tell you they are in better conditioning this year than they were last year, and it's by no lack of training or whatever. But you see the way Greg demands an all-out sprint, whether it's 2 yards or 20 yards or 40 yards or 60 yards, every single play. You have to be at a whole nother level of conditioning to do that. And so they're prepared for that. But like I said, the more guys that we've got that could play starter caliber reps and maybe all of a sudden take a few snaps here or there off guys so that they're fresh as can be in the fourth quarter to finish out games, something that you do every team does on the D-line. Not as many teams do in the secondary and linebackers, but when all of a sudden you're lucky enough to maybe have a rotation like that, maybe you can do that a little bit, and we'll see as we continue to fill through the process how that all works out.
Blake, what you've had, how you doing, by the way?
Doing good to see you, Liam. Long time no see.
Yeah, you've had Kirksey for a few months now. What are your impressions? What do you see in him as a player?
As a player, I think, very athletic, quick, instinctual. I think at times maybe people look at his body and say big safety, skinny, long, rangy. People don't realize how powerful he is. When you put him on, strength numbers, when you put him on stuff like that, when you watch him explode, when you watch him jump, when you watch him do certain plyometric lifts, and then therefore when you watch him do things like blitz or have to engage with the running back, engage with the fullback, engage with the tight end, you say, whoa, that doesn't necessarily fit maybe quite what you're not just overly muscled and rocked up, but just explosive. I mean, he's an explosive player, and so that's fun to see. Hard effort player too.
Pretty good in coverage too.
Mm-hmm. He is. He's got some natural instincts there, some rangy. He played in the college 4-2-5 defense at Iowa, so the position he played at Iowa is more similar to an NFL nickel DB. That's playing in zone coverages and match coverage on the slot. That's kind of what he did in college, and so you see that in in some of those sub down, nickel down situations sometimes that still be able to come out of them.
Who are some of those under the radar kind of guys that have impressed you?
The group as a whole, and this is, I'm just being completely honest, the group as a whole has been amazing we've given them extensive tests, quizzes, homework. Like they're back in college again, and they eat it up. They request it. When all of a sudden we stop giving it to them and maybe they make a couple mistakes one day, they're like, hey, can you go back and give me the quiz from 2 months ago right now? I want to go back. I felt like I did a little bit better. They're eating it up, and so they're all doing very well. But you just see those guys. I mentioned Joe Schobert, I think playing at a high level right now. Dominic Alexander, another guy that was here last year, really coming on and playing at a high level right now. And even some of those young guys, all those young guys doing a lot of really good things.
With Schobert, I think he was kind of cast as an outside guy when he got here. Mm-hmm. Why is he able to make that transition inside?
I said this in this off season when we talked. This is just in my opinion. He's not a 34 outside linebacker. That's what he kind of played in college. That's what he kind of played last year. But that's not what his body is. The former big time high school basketball player, the guy that played receiver and kind of came into Wisconsin as a receiver, the guy that went viral last year, vertical jumping and taking the ball underneath his legs while he's in midair and dunking the ball. That's who Joe is. That necessarily isn't a 34 outside linebacker. It's more probably a 4-3 linebacker. And What's interesting about Joe that you've seen this year is has reduced weight a bunch, but is actually a lot stronger and more powerful, and so he's gone, and then, his ability to kind of do some of these things in athleticism, that basketball athleticism allows him to be a good Mike and Will, but then all of a sudden some of that time on task of being a pass rusher and a 34 outside linebacker allows him to even be a Sam, say, down on the ball, pass rushing, and kind of do that. And so he can really be a jack of all trades on where he's gotten himself to now.